I'd like to call to order the Monday, January 5th, 2015 Board of County Commissioners meeting. There's a quorum with all three commissioners present, including our newest commissioner, Commissioner Gary Stamper. And Commissioner Stamper, would you like to lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have the approval of the minutes?
We have no public comment.
Minutes first.
I move to approve the minutes of December 22nd, 2014.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of December 22nd, 2014. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment? We have two individuals. Hal Washburn of Cinnabar. And just to note that we do have a 3-minute limit per person on our schedule. Thank you. Could you state your name and address for us?
Yes, I am Hal Washburn, and I live at 186 Calvin Road in Cinnabar. And I'd like to wish you a Happy New Year as a board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a New Year's resolution I'm going to propose for you. Before I do that, let me tell you about one I've made personally. During the year last year, as a what I consider a normal, concerned citizen who pays attention to what's going on, I became very much alarmed at what's going on in this country. Politically, it seems our constitutional representative republic is devolving into a socialist monarchy. Rule of law is being trampled on, and people are making laws that have no right to do so. Separation of powers is pretty much being ignored. So I decided to make a resolution personally to pay more attention. And the only way I can do that is locally to what's happening politically. So I've decided to come to quite a few more of these meetings.
Good.
Which gets me to my resolution I'm going to suggest for you. As a board, you know, the video and the minutes of these meetings are posted on the internet. And I've observed that the delay between the time of the meeting and the time they finally get posted is becoming more and more. For example, I was here on December 15th at a meeting you had that Monday. Which, by the way, was the date that you announced the hearing that will take place a little later. That video and those minutes, the video at least has still to be posted, which means it's about 22 days late, or not late, but it's been 22 days since the date of the meeting. The minutes were just posted last Friday at 11:20 in the morning. There are other instances where the delay has been 22 days, 8 days, 12 days. And I'm going to suggest, in the interest of transparency and timeliness to the public, because there are a lot of people, of course, that can't attend these meetings. They live too far away, or they work during these hours, or some other reason. I think these meetings, the videos and the corresponding minutes should be able to be posted at least by the end of the week, by Friday afternoon of the same week of the meeting. And I'd like very much to you to make somewhat of a commitment to see that that happens. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. And we cannot post the minutes of the Monday meeting until we approve them the next Monday, just to know that. But I appreciate your outlining to us some of the issues we have in getting those things online. And you're saying online as well as on television? Or just online?
On the county's website.
On the county's website. Okay. We'll take a look at that. Thank you. Right. Bob Bozarth.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I'm Bob Bozarth. I reside at 247-06 Woodard Road in Chehalis. I would like to tell you a little bit about 594. And at least two of you up there have heard this spiel before. And when I first came in here in this conversation, I felt like we were kind of putting this off to, this is not a county issue, this is a state issue. And then on the second meeting, we got to the point where the Lewis County Prosecuting Attorney, Jonathan Myers, put out a public statement. Our sheriff, John Snaza, put out a public statement. And it has turned into a situation where Channel 4 News got a hold of this, and it's no longer became just a Lewis County issue, has it? I would like to thank you very much for the time you've allowed for us to address this subject, and I would like to encourage you to continue this effort forward, as you have a great opportunity to set the tone for the state of Washington by simply taking this one step further, coming up with a resolution that you can vote on, and you can send a loud and clear message to the state of Washington that we do not accept unconstitutional issues or laws in Lewis County. And this law is currently being challenged in court, and I predict that it will fall by defeat. And you can take a large part in this by setting the tone. Please consider that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bozarth.
Thank you.
Okay. No further public comment?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the notice agenda. One item, resolution number 15-001.
I second.
Mr. Elsey.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Elsey, Public Works Director, speaking to item number 1 on your notice agenda, and that's the establishment of the 2015 County Road Construction Projects by County Forces. This is resolution number 15-001. As you're aware, pursuant to RCW 3677-070, if the board determines that any construction should be performed by county forces and the estimated cost of the work exceeds $10,000, it shall be caused to be published in one issue of a newspaper of general circulation in the county, a brief description of the work to be done and the county engineer's estimate of that work. With this notice, we are noticing that we expect to perform 3 projects with county forces. One is our annual 2015 countywide 3R program, and that's for $1,100,000. The next is the 2015 countywide miscellaneous safety and guardrail program. That's for $25,000. And finally, the Roundtree Road slide repair for $150,000. That's for a total of $1,275,000, and the county forces construction limit is $1,277,679.
You might explain what 3R is?
3R, of course, is resurfacing, restoration, and rehabilitation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any comment? It's been moved and seconded to approve the notice, resolution number 15-001. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carried. Okay, number 2.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda, items 2 through 10, resolution number 15-002 to 15-010.
I second those resolutions.
Okay, resolution number 15-002, approval of warrants for payment. Warrants, 411 regular warrants, and payment against the county in the amount of $2,345,336.55. Oh. Next, cancellation of warrants.
Good morning, Commissioner. Suzette Smith, Auditor's Office, Financial Services Division, here to speak about consent item number 3, resolution number 15-003, cancellation of warrants. We have 2 warrants that were lost. We have received an affidavit of lost warrant from both the vendors per RCW 4308. The 2 warrants total $95. And once we have received the approval to void those warrants, they will be reissued and mailed back out to the vendors.
Okay, thank you. And congratulations on your new job. Number 4, foreclosure.
Good morning, Laura with the Lewis County Treasurer's Office, last name Ryder, sorry.
Thank you.
Resolution 15-004, designating a time and location for the tax foreclosure sale. We would like to recommend Friday, January 30th at 9 a.m. here in this Commissioner's meeting room.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sheila Gray, WSU Lewis County Extension Director. I'm here before you for resolution number 15-005, requesting the consent and approval of an interagency agreement with Washington State University for the delivery of outreach education programming. WSU and Lewis County have had a long-standing relationship in regards to support and then the delivery of outreach education programs for the community members of Lewis County. And so I'm here to garner your consent for the agreed amount of a memorandum of agreement for $68,374. This supports in total a portion of my position as county director, 2 county faculty resource members, a portion of a natural resource education for stewardship position, 1 non-academic lecturer extension educator, which attends to our food advisory and safety programs, and then 2 part-time project positions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see the coroner here. Item number 6 is a contract between the Lewis County Coroner's Office and Northwest Forensic Pathologists for autopsy services. And along with that, on resolution number 7 is a contract between Lewis County Coroner and Brown and Stickland Funeral Homes for removal services. Okay.
Good morning. April Kelly, Social Services Manager of Public Health. And I am here to talk about resolution number 15-008, approving contracts with Community Allied Behavioral Health, True North ESD 113, Eugenia Center, and Fresh Start for drug and alcohol treatment and prevention services. These contracts are the contracts we have annually with them to provide chemical dependency services with funds that we receive from the state. And resolution number 15-009, appointing Larry Mason as an alternate member to the Veterans Advisory Board. There was a vacancy due to a resignation, and this fills that vacancy.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Lee Napier, Director of Community Development, speaking on agenda item number 10, resolution 15010. This would be the reappointment of Mike Mahoney to the Lewis County Planning Commission. Mr. Mahoney has served 2 terms on the Planning Commission and would like a 3rd term. This will be his last term, and it will be a 4-year commitment. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you. So we have a motion for the consent agenda items 2 through 10, number 15-002 through 010. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now we will be moving to the hearing. We will first have a staff report, followed by a question and answer period. We will then close the question and answer period and open the hearing for formal testimony. And this is the hearing regarding Ordinance 1257, adding a new chapter to Title 10 of the Lewis County Code, enumerating exceptions of marking county vehicles. And we will have 3 minutes for public testimony. And any of those citizens that would like to testify should sign in on the sign-in sheet. Okay, let's go with the staff report.
Verifying Glenn Carter from the Prosecuting Attorney's Office. State law generally requires vehicles owned or controlled by the county to be marked while used in public business or operated on the public highways. RCW Title 46, Chapter 8, Section 65 authorizes county boards of county commissioners to accept from the marking requirements publicly owned vehicles, quote, used for law enforcement, confidential public health work, and public assistance, fraud, or support investigative purposes, and for vehicles leased or rented on a casual basis for a period of less than 90 days, unquote. Additionally, Title 46, Chapter 8, Section 66 authorizes the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles, on the recommendation of the Chief of the Washington State Patrol, to issue confidential plates where necessary for the personal security of a county officer or employee. Excuse me. The proposal that we have before you adds a new section to the Lewis County Code, authorizing the use of unmarked vehicles for the purposes permitted by RCW Title 46, Chapter 8, Section 65 through 66. The proponents are the Lewis County Sheriff's Office and the Prosecuting Attorney's Office. We're proposing this change because of a recent incident in Chelan County, where a challenge was made to the unmarked status of a sheriff deputy's vehicle. The allegation was made that in the absence of a county ordinance authorizing the use of unmarked vehicles, they cannot be used. In the wake of that incident, and in an abundance of caution, the LCSO and the prosecuting attorney have proposed this ordinance to specifically authorize the use of unmarked vehicles for the permitted statutory purposes. From time to time, the LCSO is engaged in investigative activities, such as operations to stop trafficking in illegal drugs or gambling fraud or other criminal activities, where the use of an unmarked vehicle enhances the effectiveness of the investigation as well as provides an extra measure of personal protection to the officers involved. We believe this tool should be available to the Sheriff's Office and ask that the Board of County Commissioners enact the proposed ordinance.
Any questions from the board?
Glenn, how many unmarked vehicles does the county own at this time?
I don't know the answer to that.
Mr. Tim Elsey, could you come to the front? Are you aware under the fleet how many unmarked cars we have? I'm not aware of any.
The no vehicle except the Sheriff's Department are unmarked. The Sheriff's has some vehicles that are unmarked, and I don't know how many there are.
Okay, thank you. It's just the Sheriff's Office, though.
That's correct.
Any other questions from the board?
Your Honor, I'm sorry.
Okay. So question and answer for the public.
Ron Averill, Centralia area. Glenn, are we essentially adopting the RCW in this?
In the sense that the exceptions that are permitted by the RCW are the only exceptions that we're adopting, yes, we are doing that. And as we read the RCW, it does authorize us to adopt those exceptions.
Right. So we couldn't have just adopted or referenced that and say that we're complying with it, or was it felt better to be specific?
The way in which it says in the statute, it says that the appropriate governing body may provide by rule or ordinance for marking of passenger motor vehicles as prescribed in subsection 2 of this section, or for exceptions to the marking requirements for local government agencies for the same purposes and under the same circumstances as permitted for state agencies under subsection 3 of this section. So arguably, it could have been done by rule as well as by ordinance, but we chose to go by ordinance.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public?
Madam Chair, I have another question.
Okay.
I thought one of these categories said that the health department could also be approved. Are we issuing that in the ordinance at all? Because I don't remember seeing that in the ordinance.
It should be in there because one of the exceptions is used for law enforcement confidential public health work.
Okay, that's what I was asking for.
Yes.
That's what I'd read.
And I thought that it had been, yes, we have that in subsection 2 under A, vehicles used for confidential public health work.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had missed that.
Okay. Any other? Yes, sir.
Again, Hal Washburn from Cinnabar. I'd like to know if this proposed ordinance would permit the sheriff to use that unmarked vehicle to issue speeding tickets or for traffic control, or if the local police departments in the future were to obtain unmarked vehicles, could they be used for normal police activity, stopping people for speeding or going through stop signs, et cetera?
Thank you, Mr. Washburn. The authorization under the statute is, quote, used for law enforcement, comma, confidential public health work, comma, and public assistance, fraud, or support investigative purposes, etc. I don't know. I assume that law enforcement can be a fairly broad rubric, and I would think that enforcing the laws might include traffic laws. But I haven't rendered an opinion on that. But just reading what the statute says, it appears that it says used for law enforcement, and that would be a fairly broad authorization.
Any other further questions?
Your Honor, there actually are a number of questions that were submitted for record purposes by Cindy Tickner, who is a former employee of the county. And she has asked that those questions, which are numbered 1 through 14, I believe, on her submission be answered as well. So I was going to proceed to do that with your leave. Question 1 is, how and who will authorize the use of an unmarked vehicle when an employee feels threatened? And the answer that I would provide is that the ordinance incorporates state law, which provides in RCW 4608-066-1C for the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles to issue confidential plates to any public employee for the personal security of that employee when recommended by the Washington State Patrol Chief. Therefore, under the proposed ordinance, the Chief of the Washington State Patrol will have to make the recommendation to the DMV Director to issue confidential plates for personal security reasons. The BOCC can make the request, but the Chief of the Patrol has to agree and make that recommendation to the DMV. So that's only for the issuance of confidential plates in the interest of the personal security of an employee. So it's a long process. It's a process that involves the Chief of the State Patrol as well as the Director of the DMV, and they are making the decision effectively. The second question she has is, how will you handle the public's concern of feeling threatened by a public employee in an unmarked vehicle? My best answer is that in any case where a member of the public feels threatened by public employees, he or she should contact the employee's supervisor or law enforcement or both. 3 is, will your decision to allow an employee to drive an unmarked vehicle, with the exception of those allowed by RCW 460806, be made public? If the security of an employee requires the use of an unmarked vehicle, there might be reasons why that employee's identity is not disclosable. However, whether it is or is not disclosable will depend on the facts and circumstances of the case, and I cannot speculate at this time. Number 4 is, will the employees who drive an unmarked vehicle pay tax for the vehicle in accordance with the IRS tax requirement? And the follow-up to that is, how will you ensure the tax laws are followed? Unfortunately, I'm not an expert on this aspect of the tax laws, and that question is best addressed to a tax accountant or within our own county to the accounting services folks in the auditor's office. How are you currently reporting unmarked vehicle use to the IRS for the employees violating RCW 460806 and other laws? I'm not aware of any violation, but I do answer, I do not know, again, the answer to this question. It would be best addressed to the county employees that handle the county tax issues. The next question is, why are you making these changes? The change was proposed in response to a recent case or incident in Chelan County, where, as I understand it, a sheriff's deputy in an unmarked vehicle was stopped a driver. The driver complained that the officer could not lawfully use the unmarked vehicle for law enforcement purposes because it was not properly marked under RCW 4608, and because the Chelan County BOCC had not adopted this kind of ordinance. In the abundance of caution and in response to that event, this county, and others around the state are in the process of adopting ordinances specifically authorizing the use of unmarked vehicles in compliance with RCW 460806. It's my understanding that a number of counties are doing the same thing.
Glenn, before you go on to the next one, we're actually doing a little CYA. We are authorizing practices that we are already currently conducting. We already have unmarked vehicles.
As I understand it from what Tim said, is that we have some unmarked police vehicles.
Department.
Correct.
And so we've already been doing this. They're saying the county didn't adopt this ordinance, so they can't do it. So we're adopting the ordinance to cover current practices.
That's true. There's an interpretation of the statute that would say that you're not required to do this. But in an abundance of caution, we're going to make sure that we get this specific authorization. The 7th question is, what benefit is it to the public? And we would submit that unmarked vehicles are useful in undercover investigations, including but not limited to illegal drug trafficking, public assistance fraud, and support investigations. Number 8, will unmarked vehicles be taken home or used for out-of-county travel? It is my understanding that some vehicles may be used for commuting purposes but are not authorized for personal use. So I think that when we talk about unmarked vehicles, there may be some sheriffs' unmarked vehicles that are being used, that are allowed. The person is allowed to take that vehicle home as part of their commute and to commute back into work with it, but it's my understanding that no one would be allowed to use it for personal use. Also, some marked vehicles are used for out-of-county travel to conferences and the like. Again, it is my understanding that they are not authorized for personal use. Number 9, what audit tracking documentation will be in place to ensure these vehicles are being used for county business and not personal use, or to threaten or follow people? I'm not personally familiar with the auditing or tracking of personal use of county vehicles. However, in my experience as a lawyer in the private and public sectors, it is dependent on the personal record keeping of the individual, number 1, checking by the employee's supervisor, number 2, and reports from members of the public, number 3. Number 10, how long will an employee be allowed to drive an unmarked vehicle because they feel threatened? Now, this goes to that exception with respect to the director of DMV. And based on RCW 4608-066, the determination whether and for how long a public employee may drive an unmarked vehicle for personal security reasons will be for the DMV director to make on the advice of the chief of the State Patrol. Number 11, are family members allowed to ride in unmarked vehicles? I don't know the answer to the question. Assuming that we have unmarked vehicles, I think it would depend on the facts and circumstances. That's a lawyer's answer. For example, if an employee is allowed to commute in the vehicle, I don't know whether he or she also would be allowed to carry a family member into his or her place of work in the vehicle. I don't know, but it would depend on the facts and circumstances. Number 12, how will the public know if a county vehicle is being used for personal use, or when to notify the BOCC of unsafe operation or improper use if the vehicle is not marked? The best answer I can give is that a citizen should report unsafe driving to law enforcement and include the license plate number, whether a vehicle is marked or not. I understand that if it's an unmarked vehicle, that one isn't necessarily going to know it's a public employee. Number 13. Number 13 says, have you reviewed the state auditor's guidelines for taxing the use of publicly owned vehicles? And again, I'm not personally familiar with those guidelines. The county auditor's tax personnel are responsible for reviewing and applying the state auditor's guidelines. And then number 14, how will no marking a vehicle or not marking a vehicle, I think she means, protect an employee who feels threatened? The legislature made that determination to adopt the employee security exception in the state law. I'm sure it's very rarely used. I am not personally aware of what incidents the legislature considered in concluding that it was necessary. Now, those are the 14 marked questions that Ms. Tickner submitted. There are a few questions that are later in the body of what she's submitted. So she says, is this ordinance being changed to protect threatened county employees or to allow certain employees to continue to drive an unmarked vehicle and go unnoticed by the public? And no, the proposal again is being made in response to that Chelan County incident. There are then a series of kind of rhetorical questions which I'm not going to answer. And I believe that's all.
Okay. All right. Did I see another hand out there that wants to ask a question? Mr. Rupert? Would you like to come over here to the microphone and state your name and address?
Hi, my name is Bo Rupert. One of the questions
And where are you from?
Chehalis.
Okay.
One of the questions I have, which is a rather longer question, is the former congressional candidate Gav Syme pulled over a Chelan County deputy this year and provided him with all the law on why he can't use an unmarked vehicle for traffic stops. So I feel that, one, we should definitely follow that law because it's not only for the police, it's also for the safety of the public. And so, I mean, what precautions are we going to take to make sure this law is followed is my question.
Let me ask you a real quick question. I'm not sure how to say this politically correct, so I'll just spit it out. I've been stopped by more than one state patrolman in an unmarked car, and they primarily do traffic stops. And if the state patrol can do it, why can't the county sheriff? Because they do it all the time. The state patrol does it all the time.
I can't answer that for you.
And neither can I, because my understanding, and Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, the state law allows them to use unmarked cars for traffic stops.
Okay.
So I don't see where that's against the state law.
But, you know, anyone can clip a set of lights to their visor and pull someone over, and, you know, you don't know that
There
that's...
is a law against that.
Yes.
Well, you don't know that's an armed thug till he's up next to your window, so that's kind of the whole point of this law, I think.
But Mr. Rupert, I will say in your defense or your support that the law is not well written. It's somewhat obscure. It's a little bit vaguely worded, and so I think that's the reason why a number of counties have not done this before. But yes, you're correct. That Chelan County incident is what is the reason for this change, out of an abundance of caution.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Bozarth, come on up.
Bob Bozarth, Chehalis. I'm sorry, sir, I know your first name is Glenn. I'm not familiar with your last name.
Carter.
Thank you. Out of the 14 questions that you identified in that content, how many of those questions can you answer with an affirmative yes or no?
Well, Mr. Bozarth, most of the questions are not yes or no questions. They're how will you. 1 and 2 were how will you. And then number 3 is will your decision to allow an employee to drive an unmarked vehicle with exception of those allowed be made public. I can't say that. So
well, let me redirect.
Okay.
How many of those questions can you give us an answer to other than I'm not sure?
I think I've tried to do it with all of them. The ones that I'm not sure about are the tax law questions.
And my point is, as I was listening, I heard a lot more, I'm not exactly sure, than I did, this is the way it is. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
Can I answer that a little different? The tax laws, I'm not aware of anybody who drives an unmarked car outside the sheriff's department. I don't know if there's anybody inside the sheriff's department. I don't supervise the sheriff's department. The sheriff works for you, not for me. So I don't know how many of their people are actually driving or taking home an unmarked car. I think what they ask about the tax is the IRS some years ago said, if you're allowed to take your government car home, that's a perk. There's a dollar amount assigned to that, and you have to pay taxes on it. If you get a reserved parking spot, there's a dollar amount associated with that, and there's a tax associated with that. If you ask me, I know that rule exists. I don't know what the dollar amount is. So if you ask me specifically, is anybody in the commissioner's office being charged a tax for using that car for commuting? And I'll answer you no. There's no unmarked cars being used for the commissioner's office that are a benefit that can be taxed. I can't answer that for the sheriff's department. I know that they have unmarked cars. I don't know how many, and I don't know if they take them home. So how that formula works, I could go down to the auditor's office and ask for that information. I could get it. I don't know whether it'd take them a couple of days to take a look at that and dig it out. That's not, we're trying to hide that. It's that's not an answer that comes out of our office. Some of the information's in the sheriff's office, and some of that information is in the auditor's office. And I would have to be, just like any other private citizen, I'd have to go down and ask that question.
Well, I appreciate that. My question wasn't exactly in terms of taxation, because obviously none of us know what goes on with taxation for the most part. Mm-hmm. But my question was more in terms of, it seems to me like out of the 14 questions that were asked, doggone it, there was a lot of questions that we're unsure about, and I just want to throw caution to the fact that we don't want to end up in a situation where we're passing a law only to find out what's in it. We did that way too much in our country, and I think we ought to be a little bit more clear about making a decision until we have all the facts.
Well, this one, just before you leave, what we're doing is basically approving current practices by adopting this ordinance. We're not changing how we do business by adopting this ordinance. We're already doing these things, and because of a ruling that said there's some uncertainty because the county hasn't adopted an ordinance that blesses this practice that you're already doing, we're not creating a new law and giving the sheriff any additional powers. We're just covering ourselves because the sheriff already operates that way in some undercover work.
Well, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to comment on that because this is a question
right,
period, I believe.
Question and answer, yes.
So I'll reserve my comment until later.
Okay, thank you. One last call. Any other question and answer? Okay, I'll close the question and answer period. And Mr. Carter, would you like your opening comments incorporated into the record of the hearing?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'd like to open the hearing for public testimony. First call up Robin Roy.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for allowing us to, I'll be here to speak to you. My name is Robin Roy. I live at 186 Calvin Road, Cinnabar. And my concerns about this, I really wish, because we have so many, since this is impacting the Sheriff's Department, I really wish the Sheriff's Department were here so that we could ask them questions directly, like how many unmarked cars do you have and exactly what would you be using them for. As a citizen of Lewis County, I'm opposed to having the unmarked cars. I know Commissioner Schulte was saying we're just kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, if you were. But it would seem to me that our law enforcement is here for public protection, such that if I have a problem somewhere and I see a police car driving by, a sheriff's car driving by, that I could flag them down for assistance, because that is what they're for, is to assist the public. I would not be able to do this with an unmarked car, and I'm really wondering how much of this using unmarked sheriff's cars for this police work is actually entrapment of the citizens to try to catch them at something, as opposed to many of us were on the road, we see a police car, we glance down to make sure exactly what our speed is. That is one benefit that I see, that we do have marked police cars. And if we don't have them, it feels like entrapment, and I'm wondering if this is being done as a way to generate more revenue, since I know the county does have some revenue problems. And given what a poor county that we are, it does not serve the members of this community well. So I know that this is practice already occurring, that we're just legitimizing, if you will. But I am personally, as a resident and citizen, opposed to this. And I don't think it works well for the citizens. It's not for our benefit.
Robin, I just have one statement, is not all of us look at our speed when we see a marked car. I usually wait till the flashing lights and then look down.
Then too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. Hal Washburn.
Once again, Hal Washburn from Cinnabar. I've read the RCW, and it seems to me that it was written in such a way to provide for public safety. Because people in the past, you know, I've read stories of people being pulled over on dark roads by a car with flashing lights and perhaps a siren, and it turned out to be someone carjacking them or kidnapping them or raping them or murder. It's very dangerous to have unmarked cars out there doing normal police functions, such as traffic stops and speeding tickets and that kind of thing. And the way I read the RCW, correct me if I'm wrong, but it made an exception for Washington state-owned vehicles altogether. But it made no exception for county vehicles or local municipalities. And, excuse me, my mind is going blank, but I wonder why they listed the exceptions, and I have no problem with the exception of using an unmarked vehicle for surveillance or because someone is threatened in a certain way or for witness protection or things of that nature. I don't have any problem with that at all, but this using unmarked cars for normal traffic control and speeding tickets, et cetera, has become a hot-button issue statewide in a number of different localities, not only Chelan. And it seems to me that they spelled out the exceptions, such as the ones I just mentioned, to prevent unmarked cars from being used for these normal police functions. On another note, if I were an attorney, and I'm not, I'm surprised that there are so few people here today for this issue. I thought there would be many more. And I'm wondering if the very late posting of your minutes when this hearing was announced has anything to do with it. As I mentioned earlier, this hearing was announced December 15th, and the minutes for that meeting were not posted until 3 days ago, last Friday, late morning. And it prevents people from finding out what's going on. I know you use other methods of advertising hearings, but this is one of them. And along with your comment earlier that the minutes cannot be posted until they're approved by the following Monday, I have a list here of all the meetings you've had since August through the end of the year and the dates that they were finally posted, and many of them, in fact 10 or more, were posted either the very next day or 2, 3, 4 days later, not 7 or more. And I'll leave that with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate your thoughts on that. I did text the sheriff. You know the sheriff and his folks are really busy with the flood issues going on right now. And he said he could give an approximate amount of cars that are unmarked. And he said approximately 12. And he can give us more information another time, but that's the number. Bob Bozarth.
Your Honor, also, if I could, while Mr. Bozarth is walking up, if I could just add, I'll just read the part of the RCW that deals with this. It's RCW 4608065, subsection 1, which reads, in part, the appropriate governing body may provide by rule or ordinance for exceptions to the marking requirements for local government agencies for the same purposes and under the same circumstances as permitted for state agencies under subsection 3 of this section. Then subsection 3 is the one that lists those exceptions as law enforcement, confidential public health work, and public assistance, fraud, or support investigative purposes, vehicles leased or rented by the state, now local government, on a casual basis for a period of less than 90 days, and also the personal security exception, just for purposes of clarity. If you.
Okay. Mr. Bozarth.
Bob Bozarth again from Chehalis. If I remember correctly, Mr. Schulte, I think we were identifying a CYA program. Is that what the question was? I am not an attorney, and I don't profess to be, and I don't even want to be. But I have read the WAC on this as well, and it seems to me that it's pretty clear that Lewis County Sheriff's Department, or excuse me, the State Patrol at least, are within their rights by having unmarked cars if they are doing undercover type work. And I have no objections to that whatsoever. I see it's a necessary thing. I was a little concerned before I came here, and I'm getting more concerned all the time when I listen to Glenn over here. I think there's a lot more questions than we have answers for, number one. The other thing that he identified was, if I heard him right, it sounds to me like the sheriff of Lewis County needs to get permission from the chief of the state patrol, which is a large concern to me. The sheriff of Lewis County is in charge of this jurisdiction and has no need to get any authority from the state patrol at all, the way I understand the law, and it needs to be that way. So that's just one concern I have. The other thing, if you'll indulge me in a quick little personal story. About 7 years ago, when I was driving my dump truck out at the Spiffies, I was dumping asphalt over a bank. And in my mind, I was doing my normal job. There happened to be a couple cars in my way to where I needed to dump that asphalt. So I went in and asked them to move, and in the process of them moving the cars, about 15 to 20 individuals entered the parking lot with sunglasses on and sports coats and that sort of stuff. One of them screamed over at me and demanded that I shut my dump truck off immediately. Well, I don't know if I'm dealing with the Russian mafia or who I'm dealing with. And much more than that, I couldn't have cared less, because I'm out there to do my job. In the meantime, the guy jumps up on my running board and tries to rip me out of my dump truck. I obliged him. I was a little bit younger and had a little bit more of an attitude at that time, and I came down with both feet on the ground, ready to do battle. In the meantime, I had about 10 people coming at me from this direction, one with a taser, more than willing to poke holes in me.
You're getting close to your 3 minutes.
Okay. My point to all this is I ended up on my dump truck in handcuffs because I had no idea I was dealing with the Secret Service. And had a uniformed officer came up there and asked me and explained what the situation was, that they were escorting the King of Jordan, it would have been a whole entirely different result, because I respect people in uniform. I respect our law enforcement. I don't respect people that I don't know who they are and I cannot identify. Thank you for your time.
And I'm sorry, we don't have the timer out there right now, but next week we will, so you can determine how many minutes you've used. Dennis Shane. Doesn't start till you get to that microphone.
Well, I have a personal story here.
Could you say your name? And
Dennis Shane. I live in Centralia. Okay. I hear from over here who can drive an unmarked car if they feel threatened. So it's for the safety of the person driving it. What about the people, the citizens that feel threatened by an unmarked car? And another person over here said something about entrapment. I also agree, no problems with unmarked cars for investigation. But I have seen that unmarked cars do not make people safe. In fact, there are times when they make things more dangerous. One good example is I live over by Edison School. Occasionally, an unmarked car, or even a marked car, will hide in the alley around the corner. It's dangerous to drive in front of a school fast, right? We all know that. But the police don't want to slow you down. They want to let you do it and then catch you doing it. That's not making our children safer. Now, a personal experience that is horrifying to me that you should know about. If you're aware of where St. Mary's Church is over there by the Edison School, I came home from Portland. I was going by that area, 2 o'clock in the morning, going home, going north up that street. Okay, right there by the parking lot, on the other side of the street, parked the wrong way on the side of the street where it says no parking, a big black SUV. Turned off, I see the brake lights flashing, so I think some drunk just got out of a bar and they're letting somebody off, you know? So I have to go by there. It's kind of a narrow road, so I went really slow by it. I don't want somebody to jump out and stumble in front of my car, right? Okay, I go by and everything's fine. Then I see the lights turn on, and then it starts coming down the road behind me. I get on first. This is a big intersection. It's going to go one way or the other. No, I'm still going north. It's still coming behind me. Is this guy following me? A drunk at 2 o'clock in the morning in a big black SUV? I said, well, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to get paranoid. I'm going to turn off on a street I'm not going. I'm about 3 blocks away from home now. I don't need this guy following me home. I turn off the side. He turns off the side, comes the same way. I make another turn. He comes after me again, about a half a block away. I make another turn. He turns that way after me. So I finally get up to a stop sign about a half block away, and I go through that corner and I punch it, okay? I get to another corner and punch it, run around it, and hide in an alley. I did that so fast and so quick and so dangerously that he couldn't catch up to me and find out which way I went. I parked in there with my lights off, saw him go by, racing by. He's chasing me, right? He's racing, he's speeding. So when I finally figure it's all right, I get up and I drive the half block home. He sees me, he's parked at First and Washington, right there by the school, in the middle of the intersection, looking for me.
Your time's up. Just to make a comment, I know you're from Centralia, and whatever we do here doesn't affect what they do in Centralia PD.
I'm aware of
Okay,
that.
okay.
I just want you to know what, sometimes unmarked cars do not make things safer, they make them dangerous.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Ron Averill.
Ron Averill, 2523 Graff Road, in the unincorporated area around Centralia, not from the city of Centralia itself. I think that some of the public is missing the point on what we're doing here. When we talk about unmarked cars, we're not talking about cars that don't belong to the county. They do belong to the county, and they're government cars. And all the rules that we have for people using county cars that are marked apply to the people that are using county cars that are unmarked. In our county, most of those cars happen to belong to the Sheriff's Department. It's already been pointed out that the State Highway Patrol uses unmarked cars. And yes, they stop people that are speeding. Now, some people don't know that they're unmarked cars and they fall susceptible to them. But I can tell you that for one reason or another, coming from California, police officers feel compelled to put spotlights on the driver's side of their car. Bill, if you'd be looking for that, they would catch you less frequently. So they aren't really unmarked. They just don't have the logo of the Sheriff's Department or the logo of the county on them. I empathize with those folks that are concerned about being pulled over by someone who's not a police officer, posing as a police officer. But as you know, the lighting system that we use for cars today, particularly the unmarked cars, are all inside the car, and they're in the grill of the car and the taillights of the car and everything else. So it's pretty obvious that it's a government police officer and not someone that's got one of those little circular things on the top of their car. As it was stated, the problem is that all counties and all cities, including the city of Centralia, use unmarked cars. And the purpose that we're doing here is to protect our government employees that are doing this by bringing into line the ordinance, which makes it legal so that we don't have to go to court to defend ourselves for something that we've been doing for a long time. I would propose to you that this is a perfectly acceptable ordinance, and I would recommend that you approve it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I do have one question for Glenn. Working in the prosecutor's office, do the individuals in the Sheriff's Department who drive unmarked cars and who do traffic stops, are they still in sheriff's uniforms? Or do we have unmarked cars and civilian clothes deputies? Are you aware of that policy? What is it?
I wish, as given what Mr. Bozarth has said, that I could answer it yes or no, but I don't personally have knowledge. I will tell you that every time I've seen it, they've been in their sheriff's
You drive
uniforms.
fast too?
No, I don't.
Okay, because every time I've seen it, it's because they walk up to the car in uniform. I've never been pulled over by an unmarked car with somebody not in uniform. So I don't know if that's policy. I don't know what the sheriff's policy is on that.
What I would also say is that, as I understand it, the unmarked cars are used by the detectives. The detectives don't normally do traffic stops. But I don't want to say that that's that's gospel. But it's my understanding that the people that are in the unmarked vehicles are the ones that are the detectives.
That's my understanding. I'm not aware of Lewis County vehicles being used for traffic stops, unmarked cars.
The one other thing I wanted to make clear, just because it came up in the discussion, I don't remember by whom, is that the exception for the director of DMV and the State Patrol is only for the personal security exception. not for the law enforcement, not for public health, not for support investigation or fraud investigations. That doesn't require the permission of the State Patrol or the director of DMV. The only one that requires that approval is the one where someone is issued confidential plates because of a threat to that employee's personal security. That's the only exception that that applies to.
Okay. Any other comments? I'll close the hearing for public testimony. Is there a motion or discussion?
I know that the sheriff's office is very busy with flooding this morning, and it's unfortunate we don't have somebody from the sheriff's department to answer some of the questions that the public asked and that I have. And I guess I would ask, does this have to be voted on today?
Is there a reason?
No, I'm not aware of a pressing urgency that it be done today.
Okay.
Because I would have to agree with members in the audience saying I'm uncomfortable with an ordinance that there's unanswered questions on. And I would have to agree with that. I think this is a very simple, straightforward, this is a little CYA to cover the way we're doing business, but questions were brought up that I can't answer. And I'd hate to say, well, that's not what I thought I voted on. And so I would like to then push this off for a week and maybe
invite the sheriff's office over.
Invite the sheriff's office and take down the questions they've asked about how many do we have, maybe talk with the auditor's office and said, are those properly taxed? And quite frankly, Mr. Bolzard, I'd be happy with a yes, they're properly taxed, or no, they're not. But I'm pretty sure we're audited, so I don't have a lot of concern there. But I'd like to ask them what their policy is on using unmarked cars and traffic stops. They say, yes, we do it, but the deputy's always in uniform. That makes me feel a lot better. I just don't have the answers to those right now.
Okay.
I think we have another question.
Just a question, if you table this, Glenn, is it required to give a 10-day notice if we table it?
Well, it depends on what we're doing. I mean, if we are continuing the hearing, then obviously we need to notify the public of that. On the other hand, we've closed the hearing and we simply want those questions as part of your deliberations as to whether to adopt the ordinance or not and not have a further hearing, that would be a different issue. Okay. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right, if you're
yes.
saying I want the answers to these before we adopt
as part
right.
of your deliberation.
Right. And put it on our list with the resolutions, yes.
Because as I understood it, we closed the hearing.
We closed the hearing.
So if we're going to have another hearing, we have to renotice it and have another hearing with the appropriate time involved.
So that would take 2 weeks.
Yes, at least. Because we have to then, I assume there would be no change in the publication, in the actual wording of the ordinance, but I don't think there's a publication requirement then, but you still would have to give at least a couple weeks' notice for purposes that everybody could come, sure. If you want to have another hearing.
What's your pleasure? Another hearing?
I guess my first choice would have been to go into recess until we had those questions, but we've already closed it.
Right.
So I would recommend that we post another notice and continue this hearing or have another hearing on it and have somebody here from the sheriff's office that can answer some of those questions.
Glenn, do we need to take a vote on that or not?
Not to take a vote, no.
Okay.
You can make that decision.
Okay, we'll do that then. Move it forward. Okay.
So we'll have to let the clerk of the board know to republish as soon as we can. So if that's a 10-day notice, it'll be 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Is that what it is, a 10-day notice? Or can this be a special extension and we do it next week?
What do you think, Glenn?
We're not changing the wording, but people don't have notice of this hearing.
Sure.
So we have to do it through the appropriate, we have to publish the notice at the very least. So we're going to publish the notice that's going to be at least 10 days notice for that purposes. So really we're 2 weeks, right? I think it's 2 weeks we have to do.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Last Monday of the
Okay.
month. Okay.
Do you see a problem with delaying it that long, Glenn?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. So we'll put notice out there. I just wanted to respond to the comment about our meeting minutes and our agendas. We were just talking with the Chronicle last week about having our agendas published again in the newspaper, so people will have that available as another way to know what's coming up. And we are really trying to be as transparent and notify on time. So if you have further suggestions, we're truly open to that. Any other comments from the board?
I would like make one comment on that. I find it odd that there are complaints about the videotaping this and how long it gets it to be on. And it wasn't that long ago that Ron Averill said we ought to videotape the meeting and put it on. There's no requirement, there's no law that says we have to do that, but we agreed that that was an important improvement we could do to the board hearings, because not very many people come down here Monday morning at 10 o'clock. The meetings that we've had at 5:30, I think the average is less than one, and the max on an evening hearing we've had, I think, was 2. So the answer is not moving it to the evening either. But I think it helps to put it on video, and that's a new improvement we had to make it more transparent. So that's an improvement we made in just the last couple of years, and the then Commissioner Ron Averill pushed hard to have that. I think we can do it better, and I actually like having a complaint saying it's not coming on timely enough, because that leads me to believe that somebody's watching it. So I appreciate the feedback, and I think we can do better. Yes. But that's a recent improvement. I mean, 6 years ago, we didn't videotape these meetings. We didn't put them on our website.
And now they're on our television on Channel 3, too. You can watch them 4 times a day. Please come to the, so we can hear you.
The recording for the meeting won't pick you up from your seat.
Oh, okay. Hal Washburn, Cinnabar. I've noticed that the minutes, however, get posted at the same time the video does. So if the video's late, the minutes are late.
Okay.
And in some cases, that runs 22 days. That's, I think, unacceptable.
Yeah, we'll check on that. Thank you.
You have to come to the mic.
And while he's coming to the mic, I just want to use our time to say that there's been a news release from Rob Snaza, Sheriff, regarding the Emergency Operations Center activated for impending flooding. The Lewis County Department of Emergency Management has activated the Emergency Operations Center in preparation for impending flooding. Flooding is expected on the New Whatcom and Chehalis River. There is already water over the roadway in several areas along the New Whatcom River. Motorists are advised not to drive through deep standing water and obey all road closure signs. Citizens living in flood-prone areas should move their animals to high ground. Sandbags for private residences can be purchased at several locations, including Martin Sand and Gravel, Home Depot, and Sunbirds. Winter storm event conditions can change rapidly. Monitor your local radio stations for your event updates. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Bo Rupert, Chehalis. How do we obtain the raw footage from these videos, or from these meetings?
I don't know.
Raw.
Glenn, is that the right answer, or should I say it depends?
Yeah, you can go on the website and...
Well, I want the raw footage, and...
It's not cut, it's raw.
Because if I recall here, a few months back, over an incident that took place in the courthouse, when I asked for the recording from a meeting, they said they didn't have it, and that was just a few months ago, so did this just start happening, or?
Well, the meeting right now is being recorded.
I know.
Yes, you are too, and so is, we have it going now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, with no further business, I move we adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved and second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.